Welcome, everybody. I'm here joined by Matt Dietrich of the Apollo Chamber Players, composer Jerod Tate, and astronaut John Herrington. And I think we can tell from the backgrounds which is which. We're here today to talk about the 18th of the Apollo 20x2020 commissions. Matt, this is titled MOONSTRIKE, and I know that this has a particular meaning for you.
It does indeed, Sinjin. Ever since I was a small boy, I've dreamed of going to space. At my elementary school in York, Pennsylvania, I read all of the space books in the library. I was particularly entranced by the Apollo space program and going to the moon. And then as well, the Voyager spacecraft. That always just boggled my mind that we had satellites beyond the reaches of our solar system. I went to space camp when I was 13 years old. It was a wonderful experience. A year later, my astronomy teacher named Henry Saltner at Dallas Middle School, he infused his astronomy classes with Native American stories. And so he would, he kind of mixed space and American Indian stories very naturally. Fast forward to 2018, and we're looking at programming for this particular commission for the next year. 2019 was the 50th anniversary of the Apollo moon landing. Historic human achievement. We wanted to somehow recognize this and celebrate this. And I remember I had this aha moment where I kind of put these two things together, space and Native American culture. And I thought there would be a way to connect these two in this commission. The list of Native American composers is classical composers is rather small in the United States. But, I one of the first composers that I happened upon was Jerod Tate. And I think we had a mutual friend. He composed a few pieces for the Ethel String Quartet. And I contacted Jerod. I remember just being in love with his storytelling through his music. And, we talked a few times, and I think Jerod can continue the story from there.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, man. It's really good to see everybody. Yeah, it was a really organic conversation. And at first it was just, you'd ask if we could kind of cover, American Indian topics. And I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. And then you called back, you're like, so could we incorporate, some traditional instruments? I said, we could work on that. And then you call back, you're like, could we do an actual narration? I was like, yeah. And so then he calls back, he's like, so do you think we could find an American Indian narrator? And I said, look, man, I got you covered. I have a very good friend who is a Chickasaw astronaut who has experience narrating orchestras. I was like, we're natural. I was like, John Herrington. And so we just was like, let's bring John on board. And one thing that was really, really cool is that a few years before that, John and his wife, Margot, and I had been talking about doing a project together with John that featured American Indian astrology and this kind of thing. And so we were already kind of vibed up for that. And so Matt's call was really, really serendipitous to the project. So all three of us were really already on the same page when you called. And it was just again, it was a great serendipity. And so that's how it kind of organically happened. And I think it evolved just absolutely beautifully. And it was doing that up until I was writing it. We were still hashing out some ideas and everything. And I'm very, very happy with the product.
I think that, as you said, Jerod, this is a piece for string quartet and narrator. And I don't think we could have a bigger coincidence than the fact that both you and John are both members of the Chickasaw Nation. Let me ask you about the role that the moon plays in your mythology.
Mm-hmm. Well, the moon, honestly, the moon is in every mythology around the world. There are a ton of American Indian stories about the moon. I mean, there's variations of the same one depending on which community you go to and all that kind of thing. And so both the moon and the sun are very, very important figures in Chickasaw history. We have a lot of petroglyphs that reflect the two bodies and that kind of, and we got a whole story about how the sun and moon got married and divorced, and this kind of, that's one of the Chickasaw legends. The ones that I chose were from 3 other tribes because I just felt that they had a real kid-like and family-like storytelling aspect. And so, but all American Indians have moon and sun stories like all over the place. It's really, really cool. So, but again, it's all over the world. I mean, the moon has been a really, really important figure to all of us through human history.
John, tell us about some of the stories that you have to tell during the piece.
Oh, wow. Well, thanks for having me. This is fun. Nice to see everybody, especially during this really difficult time in our history. We can meet virtually, but it's a lot of fun. Well, I'm going to kind of follow up what Jerod was talking about before I get actually into each of the different pieces. But my wife Margot had this idea, and she and Jerod had chatted about it, and I find out about it. Margot shares me what she wants to do, and then unfortunately she passed away a couple years ago. And as the story would go, is that this came about in a time in my life when I really needed it, put it that way. And so to be able to get with Jerod and Matt and the quartet and be able to to narrate what Jerod had done was, because he said I'd done this before, and I've done narration before for other things, but not to music. And so one of the nice things that I found in this was that I played saxophone since I was in 4th grade. I was marching band, stage band. I played instrument. I can read music. Thank goodness I can read music, because I had this narration that I had to, I was like, how am I going to do this? And luckily, being able to look at the pieces, both treble and bass clef, I can go through and figure out who's playing what, and I could start playing along, and I knew exactly most of the times. A couple of times, Jerod said, come on, John, come on. But it was fun to be able to do that. So, gee whiz, getting into the pieces. I think Jerod's probably much better at that. I'd like being able to caw when we're talking about Raven and gee whiz, Jerod's much better at this. Let Jerod talk about the pieces, and I can fill in where I hopefully added a little bit of flavor to the stories.
Well, let me add first, though, to follow up, I think one of the first things that actually, Jerod, you mentioned when you was like, I have a narrator in mind. He's an astronaut. I mean, you had me at astronaut, but you also said he also reads music, which is obviously very important for something like this.
The guy is pretty talented. There's no doubt. So it's a really gratifying to have, our Chickasaw astronaut sitting there with a full score reading out this whole piece. So that's really gratifying to show people. I'm like, oh yeah, here's my friend John, who's an astronaut and reads music, and hey, I'm sure he does all kinds of other things that we're not aware of. So doing
sound effects too, getting to do sound effects.
But the story, John was talking about the stories. We got 3 stories that are featured. One is Kalispell, which is in Northern Plains of Rockies tribe. And that one is it's a piece about Coyote, and it's called The Origin of the Moon. And Coyote is a trickster character, and so it has all kinds of antics that Coyote goes through. And the other one is a love story. It's this Led Up Pueblo. It's called The Man Who Married the Moon, and that's actually my favorite story. It's a real romantic story.
Bob and Tiao, Bob and Tiao.
And then the third one is Haida, which is Northwest Coast, and that's Raven steals the moon. And that's a very, very common story up there about Raven and the moon. That relationship is a really strong one up there.
Suddenly, they heard a mighty scream and beating of wings. Raven flew in and soared over them. Caw, caw. I'll teach you a lesson now. He soared high into the sky. and snatch the bright and beautiful moon, carrying it away.
And then it's bookended by a Calusa/Seminole corn dance, and that's just instrumental. That's an arrangement of a corn dance, and I want to put that on there because the corn dance ceremony is really, really important to my tribe, and it's related to the moon and harvesting and all that kind of stuff. But so anyway, it all just kind of ties in. There's 4 basic tribes represented within these stories. And the stories are really, really a lot of fun. I really enjoy them. It was a blast. I mean, it really just kind of poured out as I was reading them. It just, all this music just kind of came out very quickly. I wrote that piece very, very fast, actually.
Jerod, let me ask, as a American Indian composer, have you infused this music, the music in Moonstrike, with any musical elements from your heritage?
Well, I mean, yes. I will say things are abstracted. So if you think of like American Indian painters who will take certain icons or imagery from their own tribe and we abstract them into modern art, I do the same thing with sound. So there are many, many times in which you hear literal like powwow drums assimilation. That happens actually in the very first one. The Kalispell one, where the cello starts out with a very certain type of a drum beat that's very, very northern style, powwow style. And then there's shell shaking sounds, and that's all over the Calusa corn dance. The whole thing is like super tremolo type shell shaking stuff. And so everything is very abstracted within the modern quartet. So yeah, it's all over the place, including melodies for days from the different tribes. And so I will actually transcribe tunes from the different tribes, and that becomes the melodic material throughout each single piece. Well, there's a hand drum beat that's a really, really great beat from the like the kind of like the Canadian area of the Rockies, and it's just really rocking. And so I wanted the cello to really imitate that, and Matthew did a great job of doing that. I mean, he really sounds awesome. And so that first story comes in with a super rocking cello, and it's got this really, it imitates that drum beat. They do a really good job. I was saying, I gotta say, Apollo really, really nails this piece. I mean, just all the different aspects, all the different cultures, and all the different sounds that are in there. Apollo really, really brings them out beautifully. So, but yeah, that particular drum beat is really great, and Matt did a great job on that cello with that.
John, did you recognize some of these legends as when you first came across the narration, the score?
Well, the Raven stole the moon. I'm familiar with some of the part of that story. The other ones I was not. The first time I actually had a chance to see it was about the week before we performed. Matter of fact, I think I came in on a Monday. I met everybody on a Tuesday, and I think our first performance was on a Thursday. Is that right, Matt?
That's correct. Actually, Wednesday we did a performance at a library.
Oh, that's right.
So we did we really put you guys to work during your 6 days in Houston.
No, it was something outside of my realm of expertise. I mean, I've been doing a lot of narration, do a lot of public speaking, so I'm not at all fearful of being in front of a crowd. But once again, look at the music, trying to follow exactly where I needed to be at what time, and adding to hopefully put some color into my voice to make it to play along with the song. And I had a fabulous time doing that. But it was pretty quick and pretty quick process to get in. I think it came out really, really well. My sister came down with her daughter from Austin, and I got to sit in the audience, and that was a lot of fun. It was really, really neat.
Matt, this is the first time, is it not, that Apollo has performed a piece that included a narrator?
Yes, it is. And I was actually just going to mention that the closest analogy to working with John as a narrator has been working with a single singer. So a lot of it's chamber music, right? So there were some spots that John took a little bit more time, or maybe we did, we leaned into something a little bit more. And it's just very akin to working with a singer. Although I would think, singers, I think you have better timing than some singers, John. I'm sorry. No, but I mean that's the closest analogy, and it was really fun. And I want to also give a shout out to John and Jerod also for helping create the atmosphere that the viewer will see. We had a giant canvas painting of the moon, of the Earthrise picture, the famous photo that Bill Enders took. But as far as we're situated on the stage, we've decided to stand for the 4 quartet members to stand with John sitting like a storyteller would. And I think it's really great. And I remember, Jerod, you said something about, I think your mother was a choreographer, and then just your sense of creating an atmosphere was integral in making this a successful performance.
I thought I had to sit down because I was the oldest person in the group, and you don't.
Well, you're the sage storyteller. That's right.
Okay.
Have you written this sort of work before? Music with narration, Jerod?
Yes, I have. I am actually a very theatric style composer. I've written for dance. All my vocal pieces are very theatrically inclined, and all my orchestral music is very, very theatric and dramatic. And so, to me, doing something like that, I mean, this is right exactly where I want to be. This is a super comfort zone. And I grew up with pieces like Peter and the Wolf and Soldier's Tale. I mean, my mom did full productions of those, and so I was in rehearsal with stuff like this, and also opera and musical theater. So I love it when we can have acting and theatric elements with works like this. It was a real dream come true to do a piece like this.
I wish you'd got John to dance then.
No. If I dance, Jerod sings.
I have tap shoes for you. I'll sing and John can dance. How's that? We'll do that.
As somebody who has performed with symphony orchestras as narration, Peter and the Wolf you mentioned, Jerod, and 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, etc., I can tell you that when you have those musicians behind you, suddenly the words that you read on the page take on a new dimension, don't they, John?
Yeah, I found that it adds to my ability to kind of, add more color to it, is be able to bring out the voice and bring out the storytelling portion of it. Once again, something I've never done before. I can get up, no problem at all, and tell stories, but to tell stories with music and to do it at the right time and in the right tempo and be able to add to the wonderful quality of the music that's coming all around me. That was a fabulous experience. Yeah.
It's really, really fun.
I think it's really special to bring these American Indian stories that are thousands of years old, correct? Mm-hmm. Into the present day, and interpret them in a new and different way, and expose them to new audiences, or introduce them to new audiences, I should say.
Yeah.
John, you went into space on one of the shuttle missions in 2002. Not only did you go into space, but you did a spacewalk as well. Did that give you? That is actually you? Is it?
That's me behind me. I'm always looking over my own shoulder too.
You were doing some work on the International Space Station. Did you get a sense of being out of the world? Of that sort of timelessness that Jerod is talking about. When you're using these ancient stories, you're going back into a mythic past. When you go into space, do you feel that you're sort of in a timeless zone?
No, I'm actually you're so busy. The thing about flying in space is that we're given this opportunity to do something rather remarkable, but we have to do it, now. We have to be very, very busy and very, very focused on your work. But one of the best pieces of advice that I was given before I flew was, at some point in my spacewalk, to stop and to look around and take a mental picture of where I am, because it will be more vivid than any picture you'll ever take. And so one of the things I found about being out on my spacewalks was, I stopped, and it was one of the most moving things I can remember was hanging on the end of the space station by a thumb and a forefinger, 250 miles straight down to the Earth. But I'm looking across the Earth over the limb of the horizon out into the vastness of the universe. And to me, it was the first time I'd ever been in a position where there was nothing between me. It felt like nothing between me and whatever else was out there. And so it made me feel really, really insignificant, very, wanting to know, we can't be that special. There's got to be something else, because we're very fortunate what we have to be on this earth and to be able to walk a surface and do the things we do. But the universe is so vast. It is so far beyond our comprehension that to that point in time, it was, this reality is it's got to be something else. What else is out there? So that was a fundamental goosebumpy moment in my spacewalk, being able to do that. And I think, if you could capture that, in music, I know Jerod could do it. It's the idea is that who has done that? I actually would listen to 2001: A Space Odyssey. I took that on CD and actually put headphones on. I go to sleep at night, listen to the soundtrack for 2001. So
wow,
getting into the moment.
While you were in space, that's what you would go to bed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does the moon look different in space?
No, on our orbit, we're only about 250 miles closer to it. It's 240,000 miles away. So, at whatever point in the orbit, when you get on that side where the moon is, you're only 250 miles closer. So you really can't tell. What you can tell, though, is when it sets, and it sets behind the Earth, and it disappears. It turns into this big blossoming thing and goes whoop and disappears really quickly. That is when it gets really inspiring to watch it, because normally it's just, usually you're so busy. Oh yeah, there's the moon. There's the moon. No, big huge thing, sucks into the horizon, and that was neat to watch. That was something I wasn't expecting.
Well, Matt, you wanted to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing with this commission. Do you think that Apollo and Jerod and John together, do you think you have succeeded in commemorating that 50th anniversary?
I sure hope we have. And I think hopefully this will be an inspiration for others to be taken and inspired by the space program, America's space program, and also, classical music and commissioning, whether it's commissioning new music or new art. It's just a very important part of keeping things alive. This is like the heart of the civilization. And I think connecting this artistic expression with traveling to space, I think they're one and the same thing, right? We're exploring new frontiers, and I sure hope that I think we touched a lot of people, and I hope that through the recording and future collaborations, maybe we'll get to do this again for a different anniversary. I think the Voyager spacecraft is set to, one of them is supposed to go dark very soon. That could be another kind of cool commemorative moment.
Yeah, can I add something to that, if you don't mind? Is that, growing up, the Apollo 8, I grew up playing in a cardboard box, wishing I was going to the moon, because that's what we were doing. So to be able to honor what I saw as a kid, what I saw and what I dreamed about doing as a little boy, and to be able to have gone into a career where I didn't go to the moon, but I worked with the people that had gone to the moon. I worked with people that worked on I was hired by a guy that worked on the surface of the moon. So to be able to commemorate that, 50 years after the fact of when I was a little boy, wishing I was an astronaut, to be an astronaut in a composition, talking about the moon and talking about native stories was a fabulous thing for me. And I was very honored to have a chance to do it.
Well, let's take a listen to Moonstrike, as written by Jerod Tate, featuring the Apollo Chamber Players with narrator John Herrington. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Chukma. Welcome, my friends. Fahochahoit. John Herrington. My name is John Herrington. Chickasaw. I'm a member, citizen of the Chickasaw Nation. And along with the Apollo Chamber players, we would like to tell you some stories about the moon. Well, what is the moon? And where did it come from? How did it get there? Well, like every culture around the world, American Indians have many different tales of the moon. But one thing is certain, the moon is a very valued and coveted being. Long ago, when the world was very young, the moon was a plaything of the animal tribe of people. One day, Coyote spoke up loudly to Antelope. Let our sons go out and learn how to steal the moon. When the 8 young sons reached the open space where the animal people were rolling the great round shining ball, they hid themselves at one end of the playfield. The animal people knew that the boys were coming to steal it. They rolled it toward the boys, certain that it was too heavy for anyone to take away. But Coyote brothers, one at a time, rolled it home. The owners of the moon caught up with the Coyote brothers and killed them, one at a time. Then the Antelope brothers took the moon from the youngest coyote and ran so swiftly no one could catch them. When they reached home and told Coyote that it was his sons had been killed, Coyote cried loudly. Put that fire out. Bring me the moon. Put that fire out. Bring me the moon. They obeyed him. He took the moon back to its owners, and they gave him his sons, restored to life. One day, Woodpecker said to his grandmother, "Let me go and steal the moon." And when the moon people saw him coming, they knew his purpose, and they began to laugh. "Roll the moon towards the little woodpecker," said one of them. "Let us see what he can do with such a big thing." When the moon reached him, he lifted it with difficulty, and he staggered off with it. Again, the people laughed. "Let him go as far as that ridge, but if he passes over it, we will kill him." They did not know that Woodpecker was very clever. When they reached the top of the ridge, they saw him and the moon at the top of the next hill. He had rolled the moon down from the first slope, and his momentum carried it almost to the top of the next slope. Woodpecker flew over the valley, pulled the moon the rest of the way. The people ran after him until they were tired out, and Woodpecker rolled the moon to his home. Sadly, the people started home without the moon. "Let us make a new moon," they said, "and let us place it in the sky." "Who will be the new moon?" they asked. They decided that Yellow Fox will be the new moon, and Yellow Fox agreed. They put him up in the sky, where he was to shine by day as well as night. But he made the days so hot, they took him down. Then they asked Coyote, "Do you think you would make a good moon?" "Yes, of course," he replied. "I would like to be the moon, for I can see everything." So they placed Coyote in the sky. He did not make the days too hot, but he did see everything. And whenever he saw anything wrong being done, he called loudly the name of the person and the wrong thing he was doing. The people who wished to do things in secret demanded that Coyote be taken from the sky. Nacharuchu was a leader of his people. He was an expert weaver, wise in medicine, young and tall, strong and handsome. Nacharuchu had no interest in the village maidens who were in love with him. He was very happy in his weaving. Two sisters, the yellow corn maidens, were desirous of him, but with evil intentions. They worked very hard to get his attention. "Enough," said Nacharuchu. "In 4 days I will marry. I will hang my pearl gourd outside of my home. Any woman who chooses to throw their finest corn at the gourd, and she whose meal is so well ground that it sticks to this omate, shall be my wife." The village was very excited and got right to work. Before she lived in the sky, Moon was a maiden of the village and was away on an errand when his announcement was made. She did not return until the 4th day, and the Yellow Corn sisters teased her. They were certain she would not win the competition. And when the time came, all the maidens, including the Yellow Corn sisters, tried throwing their corn meal at the omate, but nothing would stick. Then Moon tossed her corn gently against the pearl omate, and every grain stayed. Not one fell to the ground. Nacharuchu was so excited. He had already loved Moon, and now his life was perfect and complete. He and his sweet Moon wife were very happy together. The Yellow Corn sisters were not happy. They betrayed Moon by tricking her into staring at her own reflection in a deep water well. They pushed her into the well and buried her alive, killing her. In his grief, Nacharuchu went to Moon's grave and found a white flower growing from the buried water well. He took it home and sang and prayed to it 5 times. His song was so beautiful and powerful that Moon arose from the flower and came back to life, as lovely and fair as ever. But there was still the matter of the sisters. Moon hunted down the yellow corn maidens and turned them into snakes. She told them, "Your new home is among the rocks and cliffs of the desert, but you must never bite a person." Remember, you are powerful women, but you must be gentle. Then she returned home to her husband, and they were very happy. Very good. There once was a village. They lived by the sea. They were fishermen and ate fish. There once was a bird named Raven who was very lazy. Instead of fishing for himself, he followed the fishermen and ate their fish. "Caw, caw, caw," he would say. "Gimme, gimme, gimme." He was always hungry. He was insatiable. The people were kind. They continued to throw him fish, but it didn't matter. It was never enough. "Gimme! Gimme! Gimme!" he yelled. "More! More! More!" It was unbearable. They grew tired of his begging. "This bird is a pest. He is a nuisance and too overbearing. He will not leave us alone. He eats half of our fish. It's too much. Enough is enough, Raven. No more fish." Raven threw a huge tantrum. His eyes grew red with rage. "Caw! Caw! Caw! I'll get your fish." Raven started snatching all the fish from the people. He grabbed them from their nets, from their fish hooks, and their hands. Ha ha ha! I told you. Caw! 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 At the next full moon, I'll avenge myself. I'll get you. Later, at the end of the new moon, the people were enjoying their fire, telling stories and eating smoked salmon. I wonder what Raven is up to now, they would ask. I hope he is far away from us. We are afraid, said the children. The chief assured them, "Don't be afraid. He has forgotten all about us." Suddenly, they heard a mighty scream and beating of wings. Raven flew in and soared over them. Caw! Caw! I'll teach you a lesson now. He soared high into the sky and snatched the bright and beautiful moon, carrying it away, and left the earth in darkness. What shall we do? How can we live without the moon? They were all sad and lonely. But 4 days later, they heard a loud cawing again and the beating of Raven's wings. He had come back. Caw, caw, he sang. Will you feed me now if I put the moon where it belongs? Isn't that worth a lifetime of fish? So be it, answered the people. What else can we do? Okay, it's a bargain. Raven pulled the moon from its hiding place. Grasping her with his beak, he soared high up in the sky and placed her back where she belonged. Now she could once again bathe the night with her silvery light. I thought the raven was just an insignificant little bird, said the chief. But now I see just how powerful he really is. Well, folks, there you have it. Here are some of our legends of the moon. There are many, many more, and it is certain that as we begin our new journey of traveling the stars, there will be many, many more to come.
Hey,